Nuke incoming!
This is genuinely one of the funniest and best patches we've ever had to Marvel Rivals. So many things are being answered. So many things we've been asking for have been updated or tweaked, and some other stuff we didn't really even want is also being adjusted too. Let's start with the Scarlet Witch one because it is so freaking funny and is literally what we've been talking about. It's just nice to know that the devs listen to us. So, Scarlet Witch, Wanda survivability and ultimate are getting a magical upgrade. Can now be healed by teammates during mystical projection, which, you know, isn't part of her ultimates, but is a very welcome change. I guess this allows her to stay in the fight a lot better. But for the ultimates, increased reality erasers damage from 800 to 9,999. Literally nothing in the game can survive that. No damage resistance is going to be able to tank that. Scarlet Witch's reality eraser is actually finally a reality eraser. And if that weren't enough, new effect now pulls in nearby enemies within 15 meters during her cast range. The max pull is 2.4 meters per second, which is just slightly slower than a lot of characters' movement speed. This just means that if you're caught out with Scarlet Witch's ultimates being popped, you're likely to die. Your options are either to eliminate her yourself or to stun her, which of course is still a thing, but this just means that, man, Scarlet Witch's ult is actually getting a legitimate quality of life, legitimately edged buff. This is great. Fantastic for her, but there is so much more that we're going to talk about today. I hope you guys are buckled up because this is going to be a really, really fun one. Let's start with the Vanguards. We're going to work our way through loosely alphabetical order, so feel free to skip around. I'll also make sure the timestamp in the bottom down below. Starting with Captain America, Cap's damage output is getting a slight downgrade. Removed a team up anchor bonus of 5% bonus damage. What's interesting to note is that typically whenever an anchor bonus is removed, they tend to make it up by giving him buffs in some capacity, but this is just a strict nerf. Cap is just getting less damage overall, which is interesting, but I think is kind of warranted because Cap has been very, very good in the meta for a little while. So this mild decrease in his damage, I still think is going to keep him being very lethal. Doctor Strange, the Sorcerer Supreme, is now casting faster, but he's trading a bit of survivability for offensive mystique. Reduced Maelstrom of Madness's cooldown from 8 seconds to 6 seconds, which is a massive, massive increase in his charge speed, allowing him to get this off in pretty much any fight that he's in, because 6 seconds is nothing in the heat of the moment, and also reduced his base health from 600 to 575. To my knowledge, this isn't going to be made up for by any sort of anchor bonus. This just means that Doctor Strange is going to be the first tank that we have that is going to have less health overall. He's going to be the first 575 tank, a first tank that's actually under the 600 health mark, which is really, really interesting. Maybe we'll eventually see Mr. Fantastic brought up to the tank route. Who knows? Emma Frost, the White Queen's control and survivability are getting less unbreakable. Increased Diamond Form's cooldown from 15 seconds to 18 seconds, which is a big hit for her. Means that she has to be a lot smarter for when she actually pops this. Reduced telepathic pulse energy gain from hitting shields from 10 per second to only 5 per second. This is just a strict nerf to Emma Frost. Emma Frost has been one of the best tanks in the game since her release, so this nerf feels somewhat warranted, although I'm sure some of the Emma Frost mains are not gonna like that. She's had one of the higher win rates in the game, but we're not done. There's still big changes coming to the tanks. Thor, the God of Thunder's ultimate, is getting an upgrade. More speed, a new stun, and greater Bring the Thunder. Increase the movement speed of his ultimate from 600 to 700, which is a pretty big deal. One of the biggest troubles with Thor's ult is that it's pretty easy to just simply walk out of, but that's not all. After the ultimate ability lands, a stun surrounds enemies for 1 second. This just means that wherever Thor lands, if he's landed on any enemies at all, it's pretty much a guaranteed kill because Thor does not need more than a second after that ultimate to deal some heavy damage. The whole world is going to look like nails to Thor's hammer. So we knew that Penny Parker was actually going to get a buff to her ultimate, but this is not what I was expecting. Penny Parker, enemies caught in Penny's webs are now in a sticky situation, and her ultimate ability just got slightly more threatening. Spider Drone, new effect, now slows enemies hit by 8% for 2 seconds. Each hit stacks the effect and resets the slow period, stacking up to 40%. This is a death sentence to any of the divers in the game. That 40% speed reduction is huge. Imagine trying to escape with almost half of your movement speed gone after taking all of that hit, if somehow you survived it. This also makes her a lot better at dealing with tanks too, so this is a big increase. Penny has had one of the highest win rates in the entire game, so it's shocking to see her get just a strict buff across the board, but this also applies to her ultimate, and the ultimate itself is also getting a buff. Reduced spider drone release interval during the ultimate ability from 0.7 seconds to 0.5 seconds. Generally speaking, this just means he's going to be able to get those slow stacks up on targets a little bit faster, as well as her ultimate dealing more damage, assuming she's able to correctly link it up with her spider mines. This is a really big buff to Penny, and she's going to be shockingly powerful coming this next season. I would not be surprised if you start seeing consistent Penny bans because of how good she is. Moving on to the duelist, Black Panther T'Challa's survivability after striking a marked enemy is now less kingly. Reduced bonus health gain when striking vibranium marked enemies from Spirit Rend from 30 to 25. This mostly is going to be noticeable when you're dealing with big groups, as he's going to have less health multiplied overall, but this is a pretty mild decrease, you know, and all things considered. However, he's also reducing his base health from 300 to 275. So Black Panther is now significantly less survivable. Obviously, he's also getting added over to the Gamma team up, which allows him to automatically deploy a shield when he reaches a certain health threshold. So just expect to never see Hulk ever. Hulk is just never going to see play ever. Blade, the Daywalker's sword, just got sharper. More melee damage for those who hunt in the night. Increased Ancestral Sword's damage per single slash from 22 to 24. This overall feels like a very mild increase, obviously, but remember that this also applies to his self-healing because his healing directly proportional to the amount of damage he's dealt. So overall, Blade is going to be a little bit more tanky. This is more of an increase to his survivability than it is to his damage, but of course, his damage is getting buffed too, which is great to see. Blade has been struggling in the meta since he's been released. Magic, talk about a sweep of changes here. Magic loses his team up anchor bonus, but gets a whole arsenal of upgrades to compensate. So this is basically what we expected to see with Captain America. She's losing her 15% damage bonus, but all of the other damage of basically everything else in her kit is getting increased to compensate. So Soul Sword's damage is going from 65 to 75. I've actually got a note from the official Marvel Rivals devs here saying that this is actually slightly incorrect. This is going from 35 to 45. Demon's Rage damage per hit from 18 to 20. Melee normal attack from 30 to 40, and the Eldritch Whirl single hit from 35 to 45. Again, just a mild change there. And Umbral Incursion damage from 35 to 140. So basically, not a lot is going to change in terms of her damage. This is something we saw kind of with Spider-Man in the previous season, where he lost his team up anchor bonus, but he got some of the damage back in other ways. Magic is already pretty good about her damage if she can actually land a hit on the target, so don't expect to see some of those combos break down, as generally she's going to be within the ballpark for most of it, especially if she's got any form of help at all. But one thing that did get changed that was a pretty big deal is reduced charge time required for her magic slash maximum damage from 1.8 seconds to 1.2 seconds. This just means that she's able to charge up her projectile attack significantly quicker, allowing her to deal with ranged threats, of course, which we know Angela's going to be a pseudo flying tank, so this is probably a little bit preemptive in order to keep some of that in check and giving her some better options against those ranged or airborne targets. And her magic slash now pierces enemies and reduces her stepping disc's cooldown by 1 second per enemy pierced. This just means that Magic is going to be able to stay a threat within close range much better. She can actually use her ranged attack to get in on enemies because it's now going to reduce her cooldown, which is a pretty big deal. It's interesting to see that they're trying to adjust Magic more for her versatility rather than just making her more damaged overall or whatnot, or giving her more tankiness or whatnot, because she's pretty good on console and struggles a lot on PC. So I think this is a pretty smart change. Moon Knight. Mark Spector's blade is now moon charged for maximum chaos. Moonblade now holds 2 charges, each taking 6 seconds to recharge. So basically, Moon Knight is now not only more tanky, as that Moonblade allows him to get a little bit of bonus health, but has much better burst damage if all of his abilities are off of cooldown. Moon Knight has struggled in the meta pretty much since season 0, since we kind of learned how to deal with him, so this gives him a lot more of an option to deal with better bunched up enemies by giving him immediate burst threats. It actually might be worth seeing where Moon Knight goes with this, because this could be all he needs to go from a not great pick to a pretty solid pick. Psylocke, this one's interesting. Psy's burst damage has been dialed back. Decrease the retrieve of wing shurikens per hit from 12 to 8. To my knowledge, this is going from a maximum of 60 to a maximum of 40. This is a really big deal because this was Psylocke's main tool for busting tanks as she gets her wing shurikens back off of dealing primary attack damage. Now she's going to deal significantly less damage overall to those bigger, chunkier targets, as well as making her one burst combo just pretty much not going to happen unless she can be within close range and hitting headshots. This, I think, is preemptive because of Black Panther getting a nerf. It really seems like they're trying to dial back the divers a little bit. And Psylocke has always been around the top as one of the better heroes in the entire game, just never at the top to where people are just, you know, directing some of that Black Panther dislike towards her. Move on to Squirrel Girl, who is one of the least liked characters in the game, if not the least popular character in the game. Doreen is less of a menace from afar. Reduced burst acorn damage from 110 to 100, meaning that she's in general going to have a harder time killing any sort of target that has any sort of healing at all. A pretty mild slap on the wrist, but this is not all. Increase the hit damage from Squirrel Blockade from 35 to 50. This pretty much makes up for her lost damage, but this does mean that it requires a single well-timed, or, you know, lucky, let's be honest, it's Squirrel Girl, lucky hit from the Squirrel Girl in order to get the full damage in, as the Squirrel Blockade plus 2 shots from her burst acorn is exactly enough to kill a 250 health target, assuming they have no healing at all. It's literally right there. So anybody who has more damage than that is totally fine. But the biggest nerf is Mammal Bond, reduced cooldown from 10 seconds to 15 seconds. So expect to see significantly less Squirrel Blockades, as this is a 50% reduction in her cooldown. This is a really big deal. Winter Soldier, Bucky is getting a handy new improvement to his close quarter control. Trooper Fist's new effect, the second strike, now applies a 1-second debuff to enemies hit, preventing them from using mobility abilities. This allows Winter Soldier to have much better crowd control tools, maybe even giving him the option to combo into his ult a little bit better. This is a nice quality of life change. Winter Soldier's always been very, very good, but has always kind of fell off as he gotten higher. His damage has always been kind of hit or miss, and a lot of people know how to deal with this ultimate now. So I feel like this is a pretty good change. Okay, closing out with a strategist, and some of these are really cool. Invisible Woman, Sue Storm's control and ultimate abilities just got more fantastic. Increase the slow effect of enemies passing through her Guardian Shield from 30% to 35%. That's a mild increase, but that slow effect I think needs to be respected more, and it will. Don't worry, we'll get there. Increase Invisible Boundary, her ultimate abilities healing from 165 to 180. This brings her more in line with some of the other support ults in the game, as right now she's actually one of the lower and slower ultimates for healing. It's going to be a lot harder to actually counter her unless you're dealing a one and done super, like again, like Magneto or whatnot. So this is a pretty big change. However, the biggest change is now her ultimate slows enemies within the range of her ultimate by 20%. So now when you enter her invisible boundary, not only will you receive that initial slow that, you know, when you're actually pushing in, but now this also is going to slow you even further when you're inside. Meaning that I think if you're able to get a Guardian Shield, the target to pass through a Guardian Shield, as well as them passing through the boundary and reaching just the generic slow in there, they're gonna be stuck, which is kind of crazy. It just means that wherever the Invisible Woman places her ult, that zone has to be respected. This is an insane change to her, and I like that they're actually trying to make her ultimate less of just a heal bot thing, which we see with a lot of the other ultimates, and instead actually have a niche. I'm a big fan. Loki, less damage, healing, and ultimate ability active time for the God of Mischief. Reduce illusions damage and healing from 100% to 80%. This is interesting because he already got a nerf to his damage and healing, so this means that he's just getting nerfed across the board for his basic healing, requiring him to use much more of his abilities to get people alive. Still, reduce the God of Mischief's ultimate ability shapeshift period from 15 seconds to 12 seconds. If using an active duration ability like Luna Snow's ultimate ability, reduce the shapeshift's residual period after the ability ends from 5 seconds to 3 seconds. I'm curious to what the Loki mains feel about this change, because this seems like a really big, maybe overcorrection to how powerful Loki is. Jeff is finally getting a massive buff. Jeff's ultimate leaves a healing pool after use. Dive in for some aquatic rejuvenation. It's Jeff ultimate ability now leaves an 8-meter radius healing pool at the point of activation that heals allies within its range by 100 healing per second. The pool itself lasts 8 seconds. This is exactly, I feel like, what Jeff needed, because Jeff is okay. He's the worst support, yes. The biggest problem with him has been his ultimate, because it takes him out of the fight and doesn't seem like it does a whole lot unless you can just take like 3 enemies off the map with you, but you're losing in support for that. That's no longer the issue. Jeff basically allows his team to get a smaller version of some of these other support ults while he's off doing his thing. This is a massive swing in momentum, meaning that Jeff is going to be significantly better overall. Luna Snow, ultimate ability duration is getting cooled down. See, we do nerf her. I love the fourth wall break here. I love that the devs actually listen to us. Reduce the fate of both worlds for ultimate ability duration from 12 seconds to 10 seconds. This realistically is a pretty small change, but this does mean that she's just going to be less annoying overall. The counters to her are still going to remain the same though. Still expect to see a lot of Luna Snow, but maybe not quite as oppressive as she's been in the past. Mantis is getting a bit more slippery. Movement boost from nature's favor now decays from 0 over 2 seconds after being hit, instead of instantly disappearing. This is a huge quality of life change for Mantis. This means that assuming she's not frontlining and taking a bunch of hits, she can pretty much maintain her speed boost through the entire match, as that was one of the things that was annoying about her, is if she got hit like at all, suddenly she goes from being mobile and fast to just like everyone else, arguably a little bit slower. So this allows her to maintain this in most situations through the entire team fight. Ultron got an interesting change. Ultron's ultimate now deals extra pain. No defense is too strong for an AI overlord. Ultimate ability, new effect, deals 125 damage to bonus health. This is really interesting. This is something that we've seen with Phoenix, who just completely destroys all bonus health. Ultron now has a similar deal with this, as he's going to deal bonus damage to that, right? Which means that things like Rocket's ultimate, Venom's in general, maybe Mantis, actually isn't the worst thing for Ultron to try to counter with his own ultimate. It's interesting that they're adjusting the damage side of it, not the healing side of it, but I kind of like it. There's also a couple changes added to the team up abilities, some of the stuff that we've already seen. The dimensional shortcut, the one that initially had Psylocke and Black Panther and Magic, is just gone entirely. Black Panther's been moved over to the Gamma Charge team up, which allows him to get that automatic shield, which is a pretty big deal. Something that somebody pointed out to me, I feel like I should mention here, is that the Hulk, even if you aren't to ban him for some reason, has both a dive and an anti-dive hero on his team up. He has both Namor and Black Panther, so if by some miracle Hulk isn't banned, you at least still have options, right? That's kind of an interesting way to look at it. Arcane Order, Magic is joining that, which allows her to bind enemies in place, which is going to work great with her new projectile changes. Divine Armor, which is Angela and Thor's team up, gives Angela 100 base bonus health. You'll have to join us for when we actually get early access to Angela and get to see her full kit and whatnot. So of course, subscribe for that. And Thor's new Thunderstrike Pike ability is huge. It, I think, solves a lot of Thor's problems and makes him a really difficult thing to deal with. So it's good to see Thor finally getting some big changes, especially with his ultimate being upgraded. Sorcery Surge Explosion, specifically with Scarlet Witch, is going from 12 to 6. So literally half the damage, which I think is mostly as a countermeasure to how powerful her ult is going to be. It really feels like they're trying to make Scarlet Witch more of her own character, rather than being something that is mostly made good by team-ups like we saw with Magneto in the past, and now of course Doctor Strange. Let me know what your thoughts are on all these changes. I'm a big fan. This is one of the best patch notes I feel like we've ever had. A lot of our issues were addressed, a lot of the concerns were directly spoken out to, so let me know if there's something that you feel like that they should have adjusted, and be sure to subscribe. Bless your faces, and deuces.